What does it take to bounce back and move forward? It's often said that the youth are the hope for the future, and today's guest is a shining example of that belief. Manya Ganapathy transformed her grief into a mission, founding the Anugraha Project at just 15 years old. Through this NGO, she has launched impactful initiatives in healthcare, sanitation, education, and community development, empowering underserved communities in Bangalore. Manya is changing the world through collaboration and collective action, making a difference one community at a time. Thank you so much, Manya, for joining us. And
Thank
I
you so
think
much for
you're
having me.
one of our youngest guests that we have had until now. So, first, definitely, I want to ask you what inspired you to start the Anugraha project. Can you tell us?
Okay, so actually, I didn't even plan on really starting an NGO. It kind of happened organically. So, first, I lost my brother, and then I didn't really know what to do with my time because I decided to take a few months off school. So, in that time, I was just sleeping, just like sitting in bed, not doing anything. So, one day I went out with my driver. His name is Mr. Khan, and I saw that he was distributing food packages to, people on the road. And I thought I would join him. And then the first time I did it, I felt really like fulfilled for the first time in a couple of weeks. And then I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe we should do this every day. So I partnered up with this restaurant, this local restaurant called Nama Kudla, and he gave me food at a discounted price. So we would buy the food from him, and we had this huge metal containers, and we would take the food, and we had these biodegradable leaf plates, and we would distribute the food every single day. So we did this for a few months, and we distributed over 4,000 meals by the end of it. And then, that was great. That was, I mean, we're obviously making a difference. And more than that, I could feel myself finding some purpose. But I realized that just distributing food was like putting a band-aid on a larger issue, a much deeper wound. And in reality, why are people starving? Why do people not have food? It's a multitude of reasons, including education issues, housing issues, all of that. And so I really took a step back and I was like, okay, I want to start by helping one community and address all these different issues in one community and see if I can make a holistic change to their life and uplift them through these different
So look at
ways,
the
like addressing
overall
different.
things about the whole
Yeah,
community. You started from food and you went deeper into the problems of the society in general.
yeah, exactly. And then, it's so much easier to do all of this work and it's so much easier to collaborate with other people if you are an established organization rather than just someone just doing it for
Yeah.
good. So we registered the Anugraha Project as an NGO under a trust called the Banyan Tree Charitable Trust. And that's really how the organization started. Yeah.
And I'm sure first when you recognize that, okay, food is not the only problem and there are many more factors to it, and you thought, okay, registering under an NGO would be a better way to solve this, then I think you've moved towards infrastructure, health, and other education as well.
Yeah.
What were the challenges there? How did you overcome it? And I realized that you did not do it in a one sequence. Like you did not start infrastructure first, and you did not go in a sequence. It just seemed to go like once you did this, then you started moving to the next one. So if you could walk us
Yeah.
through that also, how did that happen? How did you keep going on and expanding it more?
So I think it was a very unconventional route. I think, I spoke to a lot of people, got their inputs, and everyone told me to stick to one thing and not spread myself too thin. But the heart of the matter is helping people in just one way is great, but it doesn't really make too much of a deep-rooted difference. It does not uplift them. It just solves one problem. And so I was committed to doing everything, like definitely from the get-go. And so what I did was I decided, okay, let me categorize all these different issues I'm noticing into different disciplines. So education, for example, education can address children education. It can also address higher education, just community education, educating women. So it's a bunch of different things under one vertical. And similarly, I addressed healthcare issues. Then nutrition we started with, but then we discontinued it for now. Maybe we'll get into it in a bit. But then infrastructure, community enrichment. So that means like art, taking them for sports, taking them for excursions. So I categorize all of these different things. So the first step, actually, when I identified a community, it's near New Bell Road in near Ramaya Hospital. So I identified this community, and the first step before I jumped in and started being like, "Oh, let me help you," I try to build trust with them. So I organized a clothing and toy drive with my school's alumni association, and we started off by distributing that. And I think people really realized that there was no political agenda, there was no like agenda here really, other than me just trying to work with them to help make their lives easier. And so once we started off with that, we slowly started doing different projects in all the verticals. So I would take up one project, like we started with menstrual cups in the healthcare vertical. Then we moved on to, like reopening a school in the education vertical. Then we moved on to collaborating with this other organization that actually supplies organic, vegan, like raw materials to the school every day. So the kids can get cooked meals for lunch every single day when their parents are at work. So that was the nutrition part. Then for infrastructure, we built a community area. We took shipping containers and we built an entire like, well, I guess community space. So we really took up different things in all verticals just to make sure that I was addressing things holistically. So it really helped me organize my approach and streamline it to make sure I was addressing all these issues, but also that it didn't feel too overwhelming because I'd
Yeah.
organized it in my mind first. Yeah, for sure.
Also, how did you gather the resources? Because you've collaborated with quite a few NGOs, different NGOs in
Yeah.
different spaces. So, how did you gather it? How did you even convince everybody to come on board with this project?
So really, at the end of the day, there's so many people out there who really want to make a difference. There are so many organizations that already exist. There's so many government schemes. There's so many of these things that are pre-existing where people have spent like 20 plus years really refining their approach, refining their work. So they are way more experienced than me. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm at the end of the day like in high school. So rather than me trying to do everything by myself and trying to figure things out, I decided I would collaborate with people and make the Anugraha Project sort of like a networking space to bring together people from all these various disciplines and create a network. So connect different people, connect them with us, work together. Because I think one thing that's lacking is working together. I feel like so many organizations are very bureaucratic. They don't want to work with other people. They don't want to combine resources. But at the end of the day, you go much farther when you don't work alone. You're able to do so much more. So that's basically what I did. I just connected people. And then how did I convince them? I think I'm a generally very persistent person. So if someone tells me it's not a good idea, I ask them why. And then when they explain why, I explain why it is actually a good idea. So I think my persistence and the fact that I was obviously very passionate, I don't think anyone said no, actually. So I think everyone is also like people in
Yeah.
general love to help. So they were happy to come together and join resources and work with me. So it was great. I met some very lovely individuals through this. Yeah.
Also, I want to talk a bit about your grief part, how you changed it in a very positive aspect and you started working towards the betterment of the other people in society as well. I'm sure it must have been a very difficult time for you then. And you channeled it into a positive way. But what was that journey like as well? I'm sure, it wouldn't have been like, oh, one day you just wake up and be like, I'll do this and this helps me to cope with it. Uh,
Yeah.
how was that? How did also, because now you do a lot of groundwork and like you said that you first build the trust with people there. If you could tell us how was that emotionally as well for you? How was that journey happening simultaneously?
Okay, so just to clarify, you're asking about like my personal journey as well as how I
Yeah.
built trust to the community. Okay, so I'll start off with the personal part. So I think the biggest hurdle was not necessarily my brother's passing. I mean, he was struggling for years. He had depression, he had like various issues going on. And I think, when he passed away, we all really understood why. We got it. It was okay. And if anything, I was happy he was not struggling and he was at peace finally. So that was okay. The main issue was I was diagnosed with like PTSD. I had all of like these memory problems. And so I had to repeat a year at school. So I come from a very small school. We've been together since preschool all the way until 10th grade. So 11 years together. And then suddenly I had to shift classes and be with my juniors. And I wasn't good at academics anymore. Studying was so much harder, all of that. So my world really fell apart. And additionally, I think, as kids, sometimes if you're not in the same friend group, if you're not interacting all the time, you tend to distance yourself. So I lost a lot of my friends because everyone moved on with their life. New kids joined my school. And then the new classmates that I joined, they were very apprehensive of me. So for like the first year, I was very isolated. And so I spent a lot of time, I would just sit in my bathroom at school, like lock myself in the stall and eat lunch, or I would hide in the library. So it was very challenging in that aspect. And I think like the Anugraha Project really rooted me because I had a purpose. I was doing something I couldn't step away from. I'd already come so far. And so it kept me driven. Every morning I'd wake up, I would do my work because, I had some goal to look forward to. Now, the actual grief aspect, I spoke about in my TED talk, it's not a very straightforward journey. You go through ups and downs all the time. I mean, I'm still going through it. And you don't necessarily heal from grief. The weight becomes less of a burden over time. And I think you just have to find other things in your life to give life meaning. So for me, it was the smaller things in life, like smaller moments I learned to appreciate. And through the Anugraha Project for sure, because for example, if you just see the kids smiling or you just spend time with them and you become so much more grateful for your own life. Like I became so much more grateful and aware of my daily life. And so yeah, I just got this broader and greater appreciation for little things. And that helped me with my personal journey. Whereas building trust with the community, I think it's a fact that we showed up every week. We didn't just come around elections and then leave, or we
Yeah.
didn't really it was consistency because trust takes time and it takes action. So we didn't make any false promises or anything. We would do work and they would see our work. And then over time, the trust was built, definitely. And now we have a great relationship with the residents. It's wonderful. And yeah, that's really how that worked out.
Also, any special memory or something that's very close to you in this throughout ever since you started Anugraha Project, ever since you started working with the community? Something that you
So
felt
I
is different.
Okay, special moment. I think the more than special moment, a moment that like made me very aware of the work I was doing and the impact I was having really was around like a year ago. So the community, let me just explain it. Think of like a rectangular space and rows of houses. They're not really houses, but like makeshift homes. And there are around 500 people in this community. And there was one like daycare center because all of these people are migrant workers from North Karnataka. So every day they leave very early in the morning. They go to work in construction sites more often than not. The women also all work at like people's homes or restaurants or hair salons or whatever it is. And so they aren't really able to look after their children. There are about 3 children per house. And so the biggest problem over here is when the daycare center was shut down because they suddenly didn't have any more funding. And the only options really were for the moms to quit their jobs and take care of the kids. But that would mean they were relying on the sole income of the dad, and more often than not, the dad was an alcoholic. And so the mothers, I just made the decision to leave their children unattended. And these kids are infants. They're like ranging from like just born to like 3 or 4 years old. And this community does not have a gate, it's open. So you can imagine what happened So in a community, I think not the one I'm working with specifically, but I think the adjacent one, there's one right opposite. Two kids ran out of the community into a neighboring apartment, a brother and sister, and they drowned in the pool. And when I heard that, I was shocked because, I've grown up with the privilege of always having someone around me, always having someone to look after me. My first thought was, oh my God, what is wrong with the mothers? Like, why would they leave their children? But then I realized they also have other children and they have to balance their work and making sure they can feed their kids. So it's just a gamble. And imagine the pain of that mother who left the kids and the guilt she'd be feeling. And so I decided that I would reopen the daycare center. So we raised money, we reopened it, and I remember the mothers that signed their kids up to come back to the daycare center. They were so grateful, and just seeing that, I don't know, it was very touching because I don't know, I can't imagine leaving my kids, being forced to leave my children at home. Like I can't unattended, just running across the road. Like I couldn't imagine that. So being able to relieve them of that stress, I think was the most impactful part of this journey. Yeah.
Also, like you mentioned, that there is clear disparity between the privileged section and underprivileged, especially for migrant workers here, especially in a city like Bangalore. Uh,
Yeah.
where, of course, both the parents have to work and there are a lot more issues. How do you see that now? The difference that your work has created here for the community in general, in society, how do you view that now?
So this is kind of on a tangent, but today at school we had a film festival day where we watched a movie and we watched I think it's called People
Yeah,
2000
in life, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So you watch that movie and it's about the whole farmer suicide and all of that. And at the end of the movie, I don't want to spoil it, but at the end of the movie, the farmer moves to the city away from his village. And, watching the movie, it's really funny and everything. But the main takeaway I had was that it's so relevant to us living in the cities because we have everyone coming here in search of opportunities. Bangalore, for example, I think over 53% of our population like migrants. Everyone comes here, it's a tech hub. But we don't think about the people who have to build these buildings. They have to construct the roads. They have to take care of the sewage system. They have to do all of this. Like, who is doing that work? The migrants that come. And as we saw during the COVID pandemic, when all of these migrants were moving back to their villages and they were walking all the way back, and there was so much wrong with that whole situation. I think what I really realized was these people are marginalized. Like these communities are completely marginalized. They don't belong in the city. They're never fully integrated into communities here. Like the one I'm working with, I think people have been here for 3 generations. So even after 3 generations, their home is not Bangalore. Their home is back up north, but they never really go back, they're stuck here. And the government doesn't really care for them much. It's more of a political situation. And so the biggest change I've noticed is they now feel much more seen. They're less apprehensive of when people come to visit. They're less worried that we're here for some, I don't know, some alternative reasons. So I think the biggest change I've noticed is they feel cared for finally. They feel like, okay, we're not just hidden figures here to do work and no one cares for
Gain
us, but we're actually,
something out of the charity that you're probably doing.
yeah, they more than the actual charity, more than anything that we've done to help, I think it's a connection we've built. Like they call me Manya, and I know all of their names, for example. So it's that personal connection that they're able to make with someone. Like I'm of a different socioeconomic standing. I'm from a completely different background. My Kannada is that they laugh at me when I speak, it's it's pretty bad. But it's at the end of the day, what matters is we're breaking all those boundaries down. And I think that helps, especially the children, realize that, okay, we are people, and at the end of the day, we're equal, even if we're not economically equal or whatever. we are equal in our value. And I know I just went on some roundabout explanation, but I think that's the crux of the change I want to make. Yeah.
Also, what next for the Anugraha project? What are your future plans? What do you plan to do next?
Okay, so our overall goal here is, we've created this amazing network of people and we've done so many projects. But while implementing those projects, I made sure that I measured the success of each project. So the before and after, we're able to measure the value of the work we're doing. And so we piloted most of our work in this community, because before this, I had no idea what I was doing anyway. But after we've piloted here, we've sort of created a template that can be applied to communities like this one. So ideally, as we gain exposure, gain funding, we'd like to use the same connections, same organizations that we collaborated with, and replicate what we've done in this community in other such ones around the city and around most metropolitan cities, because I think this community is a perfect representation of many, many, many hidden migrant communities around India. Yeah. So that's the overall goal. Immediate goals, I think we're doing a health camp in a couple of weeks, maybe next week or the week after, where we're doing this in collaboration with Rotary, where we're going to do general health checkups and eye checkups. And if there's any major issues that arise, if we notice anything wrong, if people need glasses, if people need cataract surgery, we will fund all of that and take care of it. So
That's
that's what we're
amazing.
doing. Yeah.
That's amazing. And lastly, I think you were just 15 when you started working on this, right?
Yes.
And at 15, usually we don't see people taking up such things. What would be your message to the young people as well as the older ones who feel that, making a difference, I can't make a difference? The narrative that people hold, max to max, we usually think, especially in cities like Bangalore, people tend to be like, okay, I'll just make a donation. I would rather give money. I don't know how else can I make a difference. What would be
Yeah.
the message to them?
Okay, so first addressing adults, I think the one thing I heard the most was that I was really young and I should focus on school. But the thing is, why not do both? I think this has taught me so many skills. I know like leadership, I'm able to communicate, able to collaborate, and also able to manage my time. And so like if they're worried about their kids spending too much time on this, I think it's actually one of the best ways you can spend your time. Not only are you learning these skills, but you're learning so much value in life. You're learning how to be grateful, give back to society. And I think these are lessons that people tend to learn either much later in life or they never learn it. And this is something I've learned so young. And I think I'm just like lucky to have been able to learn it at this age, really, because you're able to appreciate everything so much more. And to kids my age, I mean, like, don't scroll on Instagram. I mean, I do it a lot, but you can also scroll on Instagram while helping people. I'm sure if you go to any Interact or Rotary club, or if you look on Instagram, or if you message me, I there's so much work that can be done. And if you just look for it, or if you want it, it'll come to you, or you'll find it. And yeah, it'll change your life, really, I think. Yeah. And to people who just want to donate, I think donating money really helps for sure. But maybe sometimes once a month or once in 6 months, actually go and see the impact of your donation. What are people doing with your money? How is it really helping the society? So people who donate to me, I mean, I'm not complaining. Please continue. But, I also make sure to send quarterly newsletters to update every donor on what we've done with the money, how much we spent, what difference we've made, pictures. And I think this not only connects people back to the donation, but it's very transparent, holds me accountable, everything. So it's a very good relationship, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions.